Hello, my name is Justin Arnold, and this is my final presentation for BA 113. This is our final project here in 2020. We've been hit pretty hard with COVID-19, and this has been pretty interesting. The class overall has been just wonderful. This program has been really difficult to use, but it's been a great challenge. It's been a lot of fun. I actually found this a lot more useful than I thought it was going to be before we first started, and it's actually kind of motivated me to keep evolving my final project and actually possibly use this to present it in the format that I designed and set up. So it's kind of exciting. We had some friends over last night for some games, and I was showing him this project, and he's super excited about this program, and he's a big coder, and we're actually going to kind of team up and continue growing this. So without further ado, I wanted to try and do something a little bit different than most people in class. I have no idea what most people are going to do, but I know that some of the projects could be pretty similar. So I geared mine towards more of an application that I could use at work. So I am a nuclear missile officer. We operate in 3 states in the country, or we have 3 missile wings, or 3 missile bases in the country. One in North Dakota, one in Montana, and one in Wyoming. So the first part of my presentation that I have constructed, my kind of passion and creativity for the project derived from when this first hit in January, really, in China. When we heard a few news articles about it, we didn't really know what was going on. But then that evolved into February. Many countries seeing huge spikes and lots of increases, and it just seemed like it was a media frenzy, and there was a lot of people that were contradicting and didn't really think that this was going to be a big devastation for the United States. So the first part of my presentation is this coronavirus hitting the U.S. a big deal? What are the possibilities and chances? Do we have high death rates? Should we be taking this seriously? Has the media blown this out of proportion? And the second half of my presentation is, how does this specifically apply to the 3 states that we have nuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles? Our main goal for our nuclear arsenal and our missile capabilities for the United States is deterrence. We hope to never use them, and we consider our job done well if everything is smooth and we have no even escalated conflicts with any countries. So keeping our nuclear arsenal on alert at the highest possible readiness that we can is our backbone of our deterrence for the country, and really our umbrella for all of our military forces to operate and do what they can. Most countries know that they can't do certain things and operate the way they want to, knowing that the United States has these capabilities. So we have to keep these on alert, and the coronavirus pandemic has greatly affected how we operate, but how do we continue going forward safely, and how do we not lose people to this virus, either getting sick or family members or having to take leave. So that's really kind of that was my first kind of goal, and that was kind of how it evolved. And the software and the program for me was a big challenge. I have a few issues with some of the numbers that didn't come out right, and after just hours and hours, I think the information in the graphs is correct, but there are some discrepancies with the numbers, but the way that the graph depicts them still is able to portray. So I feel with a little bit of tweaking that this actually could be a presentation that you could go to the wing commander of one of these bases and present this information. So This first graph is highlighting the total number of cases in the United States at the top. The numbers aren't correct, but you can see how many cases that we have up until the end of April just in New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, which encompasses about a third of all the cases. So it is a big deal right now. The coronavirus is hitting the United States. I remember when this first came about, no one really thought it was a big deal, and there was just a few days, if not a week, where things started getting pretty serious, and we knew that we were going to be in for a long haul. This second graph highlights the least affected states. So Alaska, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, Hawaii. These are the states that have the least amount of cases. So this is good news because the three states that we have missile bases in are Wyoming, Montana, and North Dakota. So Alaska is so isolated up in the cold with such few people compared to most states, with such a large land mass. So the fact that Wyoming, Montana, and North Dakota are in the bottom four of all of the states in the United States is a very positive thing compared to the high number of cases in very, very populated areas like New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, California. So first off, the questions that I wanted to answer, is the coronavirus hitting the U.S. and is this a big deal? So this graph is clearly showing that in highly populated and urban areas, it is definitely spreading a lot faster. So moving forward, you can kind of see both graphs side by side. I wish the numbers were a little bit more accurate. You can kind of see we're operating in the 10,000 to 20,000 range compared to millions up in the top states. So that just shows you the differences between the bottom few states and the top few states. So moving forward, again, I think some of the numbers might be off here. This graph depicts or is highlighting the surge in cases in April alone in the United States compared to the rest of the world. So we know that highly populated areas are getting hit pretty hard, but what about the entire United States as a whole compared to the rest of the countries and the rest of the world? And this clearly shows the United States in a league of its own, really. There's no comparison or no other country that is even close to the United States, starting at the beginning of March going through April. So the bottom of the graph highlights the number of cases, and the left side of the graph on the x-axis is showing our months here. So just in the month right between March and April, the U.S. has just completely shot off from all other countries. This graph is highlighting number of cases per population. So we clearly know that it's affecting highly populated areas, and that this virus is hitting the United States harder than any other country. But how is it hitting the United States harder, and what does that really mean? So up here you can see on the left side we have cases, and the bottom we have population count. So you don't want to be operating where the United States is up here in the top left corner. This is depicting a very, very high number of cases compared to a much lower population count than a few of the other outlying countries. But the majority of the countries is operating down here. So this is pretty interesting to see. So our three kind of troublesome areas that I'd like to focus on are the US, China, and India. India is depicting a very low amount of cases compared to a very, very high population count in their country. So this is about as optimum as you can get right here. The percentage or the chance of getting the coronavirus per person is significantly lower in India than it is in the United States. We see the majority of the other 200 odd some countries are operating all about the same scope down here. So this was about as in-depth as I could get on this graph. I wish I could have elaborated or highlighted a little bit further. It was a little out of my expertise. This is probably the graph I spent the most time on. But this is just kind of highlighting, and again, the numbers I think are a little off. I wish I could have corrected them, but I just kind of got to a roadblock. But this is highlighting the confirmed number of cases and the death count. So we see a very similar death count versus number of cases for the majority of all the states, actually. But the top 5, top 10 don't really change. You have a couple, I think. Connecticut is down here, which could jump up a little bit, and then obviously Michigan on their death count. So there's a few states that you could interject on the death count, but we can tell that the confirmed cases does fairly accurately depict the number of deaths per state. So we know that this is a big deal. We know that this is hitting the United States hard, and we now can see, based off of population, we can see the chances, or we can start to assimilate information based off of population counts of states and compare that to a number of cases, and then we can even further depict by saying, if you have X amount of cases, we can assume that we will probably be within these parameters of a death count also. So moving forward, we should be taking this seriously, and the media has not overhyped this. Moving on to the second half of my presentation, I really wanted to focus on how this is affecting the missile bases. I know that the DoD for the entire country, so every branch of service, has gone into a stop movement. So nobody is coming, nobody is going. People are having babies, people are having deaths in the family, and we unfortunately are basically quarantined to our house, and no one is able to come get on base. We're still able to leave base, but we can only go into town for essential medical and food, basically. So this has drastically canceled our way of life, basically. So how do we take this information? How do we process this? And how do we formulate a plan going forward to safely standardize this across the DoD? And how do we standardize this across all 3 missile wings while keeping all of our rules and regulations intact for nuclear safety? So this first graph is depicting all of the counties in North Dakota. Ward County, highlighted in green, is the county that Minot Air Force Base that we actually live in. This is an accurate number. There's 61,000 people in Ward County, so these numbers got correct. But you can see Cass County, which is south of us a couple hours, has really exploded with cases. This is depicting the size of the counties, but really Ward County is significantly smaller than the 3 counties that are larger than it. So the counties that we operate in, here's North Dakota, Montana you see is the 5th, and here in Wyoming, Laramie County, where they have Great Falls, where they have F.E. Warren Air Force Base. We have Montana and North Dakota not in the top counties, not in the largest counties, and in Wyoming we have the largest county. So there's a much lower threat per state in North Dakota and Montana. We know that Montana, Wyoming, and North Dakota are the they're 3 of the 4 lowest hit, or the least hit states for the coronavirus. So the fact that these are some of the lowest states, and also they are not the largest counties does bode well for potential risk for our military members. And this ultimately, as we're seeing right now, unfolding even just a few days ago and in the next coming weeks, this is unfolding, and this is definitely giving us leeway to be able to loosen our strict guidelines that we're under right now. We still have pretty much a stop movement in town. We can't do anything, but this is good information to be able to pass on to calculate a risk, since we know the incubation period is approximately up to 14 days. What happens when we go down to 7-day, and how does that affect? So, having said that, here is the month of April for North Dakota for cases, and we can see there was almost no cases starting the beginning of April, and we have actually seen a huge spike, but we're still under 1,100 cases. So it's a pretty steady graph and pretty steady increase. There's no huge drop-offs and there's no huge gains. So the fact that we are such a low threat for the state of North Dakota, Montana probably has the best graph of all three, starting right around 200 cases and then ending up just a little over 450, and then Wyoming, same thing, a little over 100, and actually ended up just over 550. So North Dakota has probably the most cases between the three, but all three cases either have very steady graphs or they have significantly leveled off. So this is all very, very good news. We're not seeing any significant jumps other than the one in Wyoming, where it's a little over 100, 150 in the matter of a day. And this could be based off of testing and a number of factors. So moving forward, we have the pie graphs just depicting the size of the county for Ward County for Minot Air Force Base for North Dakota, and just showing how small that is compared to the rest of the counties in the state. It's a little harder to see on the first graph, but it's a very, very slender portion of this pie graph, roughly around 67,000 in a state of about 800,000. Same thing with Montana. They've got Malmstrom Air Force Base, very slender. Wyoming is the largest county, but it has one of the least amount of, or it has the least amount of cases compared to all three states. So far, I have seen very good news. I haven't seen any big jumps. I haven't seen any big spikes. This is information that we can use as ammunition for the Secretary of the Air Force, which was just here not but a day or two ago. We've been on many phone calls with the commander of STRATCOM, with the commander of Global Strike, what we operate under, and they have been very transparent. So this is all good information that I could absolutely pass off to them to try to loosen the regulations and our operating conditions that we're under right now. So this, I threw all three together. So I've got North Dakota first, then Montana, and then Wyoming. So it just kind of depicts all three of those graphs together. It shows you size of the counties. It shows you the number of cases, and it shows how there is no significant spike. There's no point in showing the graphs before April because, as you can see, they are pretty consistently either 200 or less. I think if you were to continue to monitor this, it would be interesting to see how things go in the month of May and June. But I know here in North Dakota, I don't know if it was North Dakota or just our county, but there wasn't, I think there was less than 20 new cases in the entire month, or there's been less than 20 so far in the month of May. So all really, really good news. So this has hit the missile bases and it has hit the surrounding areas, but it's about as best case as you can get. So this was a great project for me to work on. It took a lot longer than I thought it was going to. This was many days of research and trying to formulate what I wanted to present and something that I was actually interested in. And hopefully this is going to be something different than what most of the class is doing. So I thank you for your time, and I would love to send you an updated project in the next coming months if I can get around to it. Okay, that's all I got. Thanks.